I realized last time I was really far away from the camera, so hopefully this is better. Welcome back to the Resort Mom. Today we are doing a full comprehensive review of a resort that my family actually really likes. And that is mainly because I truly feel like here you get deluxe vibes at moderate pricing. So today we are talking about Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. Disney's Coronado Springs Resort is a moderate level resort at Walt Disney World. So if you're unfamiliar with the Disney resorts, there are 3 different tiers. You have value resorts, which is your more affordable options, moderate, which is in that middle space, and then deluxe, which is going to be your more expensive resorts. Coronado Springs is known for a lot of things. It has like a Spanish, Mexican influence, and it really is a super cool resort. So really at this resort, you have like 4 different big sections. First, you have the Gran Destino Tower, which is that big tower when you first pull up, and that is where the lobby is. That's where a lot of the food and the gift shops and all of that is. If you're staying club level, this is where the Kronos Club is located. And then you also have your rooms that are not club level as well in the tower. Outside of the tower, you have the Casita section, which is still like pretty close to a lot of the main amenities. These have a lot of that Spanish style architecture, and these are considered preferred rooms. So you'll have preferred rooms versus standard rooms. Preferred rooms are closer to the amenities than the standard rooms. The Rancho section, which our family has stayed in before, and we actually really liked this section, by the way. I feel like it gets a lot of hate, but it has like that Pueblos, like ranch style, and they're really cool. They're kind of like tucked away in like the back of the resort, kind of, but it's really quiet and peaceful back there. So I don't know. It does get a lot of hate because it's a little far walk, I guess, from the main amenities, but it is a really peaceful and cool section. And then you have the Cabanas section, which is close to the dig site pool. It's kind of like a Mexican beach vibe. And this is another great section. So overall, people definitely have their complaints and preferences with the 4 sections. But when you're looking at booking within Coronado Springs, you're looking at one of those 4 different areas for like kind of what you would want to gravitate towards. So off of the Gran Destino Tower, I will note that this tends to be like a pretty convention heavy resort. So that can be a good and a bad thing. The good thing that it brings is that Coronado Springs has tons of dining options, which I'll go over later. But the bad thing is that sometimes it can feel like a little bit of a corporate retreat per se, especially if you're staying in the main tower, in my opinion. Off of the main tower, you have El Centro, which is where like the Panchitos gift shop is, Mayo Grill. We absolutely love Mayo Grill. Actually, our family loves their food. They also have like a little coffee shop right there, like a coffee shop bakery. I forget what it's called, but it's right there next to Panchitos. And then you have your quick service that's over there, and you have Rick's, which is like a sports bar. But anyways, you have like different restaurant options over there, quick service dining, the gift shop, and all of that is actually not in the lobby. The lobby is like you walk in, it's this pretty like grand entrance. It kind of reminds me of Four Seasons Orlando vibes with like the chandelier and everything hanging down. And so on that main level, you have your check-in area, and then your elevators over to your left with like a bunch of tables, because again, there's a lot of seating at Coronado just because this is like a convention heavy resort. They always try to provide like tables and spaces for people to work. But then you also do have the coffee shop down the stairs in the lobby. And then that's where you would go to El Centro, which is where like all of the other dining, food, and all of that, those options are. Then you have the dig site, which is the famous pool at Coronado. It has like that Mayan pyramid looking thing. And then it also has, I think it's called the Jaguar slide that goes down, which is a really fun slide. People really like the pool at Coronado. As I'm talking about it, I'll just go ahead and give you my personal opinion. It is like a little on the small side. I don't know. I feel like for such a big resort, it should be a little bit bigger. And it's also really hard to find shade there. Like this is not a shady area at all, just FYI. So make sure you're extra reapplying sunscreen if you are at the dig site pool. Also by the dig site, they have like sand volleyball courts. I think it's sand volleyball courts, I'm pretty sure. And then they also have a really nice playground. My kids love the playground over there at the dig site. They have like paddleboard, and then they have the arcade over there as well. Okay, and so connecting a lot of these different like areas and sections, because there is like a lake back there, pond, whatever you want to call it, you do have bridges that connect. And so there is 3 Bridges restaurant, which is right there, and it's very great. You can order mobile order to go, and then you can also dine in as well. Okay, so let's talk about transportation at Coronado Springs. Transportation is bus only here, and this is probably the biggest complaint about the resort is the bus system, and then also how big the resort is. So because of how big the resort is, each of those little sections that I was talking about earlier have their own bus stop. So like the Ranchos has its own bus stop, Casitas has its own bus stop, the Tower has its own bus stop. And so depending on where you're staying and what rotation you're going in, it can depend on your way to the parks, how long you're on the bus, and then also on the way home from the parks, how long you are on the bus. So just keep that in mind, is that sometimes it can take a little while to get where you're going. Not much to talk about transportation wise. This is in Disney's Animal Kingdom area, so just be aware that transportation can take longer, but if transportation isn't like the biggest priority for you, then I do actually think that this is a great resort, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so let's talk amenities. I do like the pool here. Again, I referenced earlier like some of my minor complaints about it. They do have a pretty decent pool bar and options. They do not have like a big splash pad like a lot of the deluxe resorts have. But they do, and they don't have a big splash pad like Caribbean Beach or Port Orleans French Quarter, but they do have a kiddie baby pool, so that is nice if you have an infant. They do have that smaller pool. Not all of the resorts have that, so I just do want to call those out whenever, in case you are a parent taking a young infant to Disney and you're like, hey, we want to have a pool that my kid can actually like kind of splash around in. This would be a good one for that. Like I said, they have the playground, they have the arcade, they have the outdoor recreation, and you've got like a beach over there. You've got like a beach and hammocks that you can play in around the resort. And there's just overall like a lot of activities. As every single Disney resort, you have the movie Under the Stars and roasting marshmallows and other rec activities that they'll host throughout the week. Now let's talk about food, which this, in my opinion, is one of the best parts about Coronado Springs. So number one, you have tons of different options. You have Toledo, which is the rooftop bar and grill that is on top of the tower. Just phenomenal dining experiences here, especially if you're looking for a date night. It is a little more fine dining, like Spanish tapas style food. So just be wary if you are bringing kids, it is that kind of environment. That being said, it's a Disney resort, so I feel like every restaurant, unless it indicates otherwise, is very, accommodating to kids. You also have Maya Grill, which we really like, and Rick's Sports Bar and Cafe. And then that is all around where the El Mercado is, which is basically where their quick service is. Now, I will say this is a big complaint that I have about Coronado Springs, is that their quick service at El Mercado is not on mobile order. And it can be really frustrating if you have the stroller with the kids and you can't just go grab a bag and have mobile ordered your food. You have to wait in line and like keep the kids. It is miserable. The 2 times that we've stayed there and I've had to do that, I am like, pull my hair out. This is not fun. It's just not fun when your kids are overstimulated and you can't mobile order and like easily grab that bag and sit down. It can be a lot. So just heads up on that. You can mobile order at 3 Bridges though, and just use their to-go option. So you do have that available to you. And then I will say there's tons of seating in Coronado. So both indoors and outdoors, there's plenty of seating no matter where you're ordering from. If you're ordering to go, there's just tons of places for you to be able to sit around the resort and eat. Let's talk different room types. Again, I don't get technical with room types. Please consult a travel agent if you want like really technical specifics on room types. I'm just like informing you relatively of what's available. So within the tower, you have like your standard rooms, and then you also have club level access, which is the Kronos Club. And then you also have suite options available too. And then you also have like regular, standard, or preferred rooms for the other sections. And then you also have, there are some suite options that are not in the tower as well if you need a larger room. While I'm here talking about the Kronos Club, the Kronos Club is the club level access and lounge at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. One big perk is that this is the only non-deluxe resort that offers a club level lounge. So it is the only moderate resort that has a club level lounge, which makes it more affordable, which is really nice. It does have a beautiful lounge that overlooks, you can see Epcot and Hollywood Studios from the lounge, which is really nice. I will say we did like the Kronos Club, but it's just not as kid-friendly in my opinion as a lot of the other club level lounges, and it did have limited offerings comparatively. But I also think when you look at like the price that you're paying for it, just have that expectation that you're not going to have the same club level experience that you would have at like Royal Palm Club at Grand Floridian that you have at Coronado, just because of the pricing, obviously. But there are like great offerings. I think it's a great option to families. Just be wary that it's not like, in my opinion, it's not as robust with the offerings and being super child friendly compared to a lot of the other resorts. This is also, just FYI, the only other club level that is not key protected other than Boardwalk to get on that floor. The elevators are like not like your traditional Disney resorts. They are more tech savvy. Again, you're just seeing more of like a business conference like focus where you get you put what floor you're going to before you get in your elevator, and it'll direct you to what elevator to go to. So you'll do that. And then if you are, if you do have club level access, then you will have your magic band to actually scan into the Kronos Club. Okay, I'm changing up the view because I was sitting on my knees and I was starting to lose blood flow to my feet, and my feet are asleep. And so I'm like, okay, we're just repositioning. But anyways, let me talk a little bit about the rooms too now. So the rooms have been renovated, which is really nice. They are upgraded. Like the Ranchos where we stayed, it was the Tres Caballeros themed, which was really cute. You had Panchito, Jose, and Donald, which was fun. Our club level room was, honestly, it didn't have much Disney influence. I'm gonna have to go through and look at the pictures because now I'm second guessing. I'm like, was there really anything except a few hidden Mickeys? I don't really think there's like much decor wise, but I will say that the rooms are really nice for the price. I feel like with Coronado, you either like really love this resort or you don't love it. I feel like the people that don't love it, again, their biggest complaint is that it is very spread out. It can be a little far walk depending on where you're staying to get any food. Also, depending on where you're staying in the bus system, like how long it may take you to get on the bus or off of the bus, depending on what stop you are. That is by far like the biggest complaint here at Coronado, and the fact that there's not like a super big cool splash pad for the kiddos. And definitely, in my opinion, the mobile ordering at El Mercado is a big downfall. I know it sounds like small things, but those like small inconveniences can start to really add up on your trip. Now, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I hear a lot of people say that if you're going to stay at Coronado, only stay in the tower. And I actually might disagree. I really enjoyed staying in the Rancho section. It was like kind of far away, but it was easy to get to the pool, easy for us to get to the playground. I will say, like, there are some parts of it that can be frustrating if you have a stroller. Like, you know, they obviously have like ramps and other access, but it's not always like super convenient. So I will note that just to get around the resort if you're not staying in the tower. If you are staying in the tower, it's not a problem. And that's also the only like section that you can stay in, is if you're in the tower, to be able to go get food and not have to go outside in the rain or any of that. The other vibe is that, you know, a lot of people say that it's not kid friendly because it is conference heavy. And I can see that argument for sure. But I think there also is a lot for the kids to do with the playground and the dig site. My kids really enjoyed staying at Coronado. Now, it's not a resort that they ask to go back to per se, but they do have a really fun time whenever they have stayed there. I'm actually not a huge fan of their club level. It's not one that I'm like racing back to by any means. It is nice because it's so affordable. So if you do want to experience that side of Disney and you want to do it on more of a budget-friendly option, then I would definitely try it out because it is way more affordable than a lot of the other resorts. So that is nice, but just also know that, like, in my opinion, you kind of get what you pay for. Like, they didn't have Mickey bars for the kids, and there wasn't much for the kids to do. Like, they didn't have like a little whole kid setup like a lot of the other lounges did. They did have a toy box full of toys, which was really nice. I didn't actually experience that at any other lounge, but as far as like it overall just being kid friendly, that was like the one where I was like, I don't know. I think the biggest perk about staying at Coronado is the affordability. I mean, in my opinion, like, some people will say that this is like a deluxe resort at a moderate or even sometimes value price. I understand that argument. I would also like kind of slightly disagree because I don't know if it has like all of the conveniences that a deluxe resort has, but it is pretty up there. So I totally understand the comparison. But it is extremely affordable in my opinion, especially if you're not staying in the tower. Sometimes you can get nights and stays here that are cheaper than some of the value resorts. So I do highly recommend Coronado to the right family. And if you're sitting there wondering, okay, Marianne, who's the right family? Who would you recommend Coronado Springs for? I would recommend Coronado Springs to these types of families. So number one, if transportation isn't a huge, like, game changer for you. So if you don't mind the Disney bus system, which the Disney bus system gets a lot of hate. Listen, it is the most reliable form of transportation on property. I actually do not mind the buses. Our family chooses not to use the buses a lot or stay at resorts that don't have buses, mainly because my kids don't do well on the bus. And I would rather personally like drive and have my car and put my stroller in the car and like have my kids in the AC with their music of choice, and like if they scream and have a fit, like no one's disrupted. Sometimes the buses can get just a lot and overstimulating, and you're packed in and you're sweaty, and if a kid has a meltdown, there's just like no recovering it. That can be really frustrating as a parent. So we try to avoid it because of that reason for our family. I know that there are tons of families out there with kids who are like perfectly fine on the buses, but for some reason it is just like the biggest trigger in the world for my kids. So we try to like stay away as much as we can, but that is just our personal experience. Again, I think the Disney bus system is great. It's fine. It's the most reliable form of transportation, and just because you're at Coronado, it might take you a little longer to get to some of the other parks depending on where you are in the rotation. But if that doesn't bother you and you don't mind sitting on the bus and folding up your stroller, then I think this is a great resort option for your family. I also think this is a great resort option for people that like a little more elevated experience, that you like Spanish style food and you like a little more like bougie on a budget. I think that you would love Coronado because you really do get the best of both worlds there, where you have like a little bit more of a nicer, luxurious experience, but you're not totally breaking the bank to do that. I also do think that this is a great resort for a family that wants to try out club level for the first time. So this is a great way to not spend like bukus of money experiencing club level and just seeing if it's something that your family really does take advantage of without the big price tag to match. Now, I'm not saying that it's like, oh, super affordable here at Coronado. I mean, it still is going to run you like a large amount of money, but nowhere near what the other resorts are. And so I just think that if you're like looking into experiencing what that might look like, this is a good way to do that without spending like too much money, not knowing if your family will really take advantage of the lounge. I do think that this is a great resort for families with older kids, especially like teenagers and up. I think that they would really like this resort. There's a lot to do. And again, it feels like a little higher end without that price tag. But it's also like you're not as bothered by the inconvenience of the transportation that's not like super top notch awesome, because again, it doesn't like phase you as much. And then same for like couples or like, you know, just older family trips. I do think this is a great resort for that. And a lot of people say that this is a great resort for adults. It is. And I don't want to pretend like it's not a great resort for kids, because my kids really do enjoy their time here. They just do prefer some of the other resorts if they were given the option. The food is so good here, seriously. Like, I've just never been disappointed with the food at Coronado. Just so many different options and good options. So I do really like that. You do have the characters that will come and visit in the lobby. Coronado is one that they are typically trying to promote to be a little more kid friendly. So if there are ever like any of those like cool kid summer like activities where they're trying to get some different exposure at different resorts, Coronado usually tends to be in that group, because like I said, they're trying to bring more kids to that resort. Overall, if you really like Spanish food, if you really like Spanish style and architecture, if you don't mind walking, if you don't mind the bus system, I really do think that this is a really great way to experience Disney and experience a more luxury resort experience without the price tag. So I wouldn't totally write Coronado Springs off. And I also would recommend it to a lot of different families. I just think it has a great vibe. I think there's a lot for you to do there. I just would note the inconveniences to be prepared for those. And if those are things that you're like, yeah, that's a non-negotiable for me, I totally get it. But I do think that more families would enjoy staying at Coronado than they think they might. And again, you just cannot beat that price tag. I mean, sometimes I look at prices and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like so affordable. And then knowing and like seeing and experiencing staying in the rooms, like they really are great. I've heard some people complain about like the walls being super thin. That wasn't my experience. That doesn't mean that that doesn't happen. I could have had just like really quiet families around me during both times that we stayed, but do be wary that Coronado does get that feedback a lot too about the rooms. Sometimes being a little loud. But overall, I really do like this resort. Our family will stay there again. My husband and I are actually considering staying there for our anniversary trip. But yeah, we really do like it. And I think that it can be more kid-friendly than people probably assume that it is not. Well, they assume that it's not kid-friendly, but I actually think it's more kid-friendly than people think. Is it the most kid-friendly resort at Disney? No. But I still do think that if you want a good balance of like mom and dad want like a nice luxury vacation, and then the kids need like some stuff to do, and we're going to find that middle ground and we're not going to pay like a stupid amount of money for it, then I think Coronado is definitely the resort for you. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope just having a mom's perspective was helpful. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments down below what resort you think I should do next.